Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. I've received many questions on how I decide which ones of my orchids I'm going to put in water culture. Because as you see, some of mine are still in bark and will remain in bark because they've been in bark for so very, very long and they seem to do very well. When you are a beginning orchid grower, you need to keep in mind that not all orchids are the same. Some of them are very vigorous growers. They have stood the test of time. They have won awards through the American Orchid Society, and they're very, very strong plants. And when you first start out, what you're looking for is the strongest plant that you can possibly find. Really, that's what I like to keep in my collection. I like to have a strong collection of orchids because they bring me a lot of joy. So as you see, this is Foul Marianne. This plant has done just remarkably well, but when she started out, she was fabulous. So as you see, you're looking at the leaves and not just at the blooms. Even though the blooms are important, don't get me wrong, but if you have 5 plants in front of you, wherever you buy your orchids, and you see that one of them has better leaves and a better root system, then you're going to want to pick that one up. There have been many times that I've chosen orchids mainly on the health of the plant rather than the spike of flowers. Okay, this is Foul Intensity. Love this plant. Love these blooms. I've had this plant for 7 years. The reason why I put this one in water culture was because I had repotted it in bark and there were bugs that were infesting the bark. So just didn't have the right type of bark at the store either. So I decided to go ahead and try this back in May, and it has been a smashing success. Look at the root system. But this was a very, very healthy plant to start with. This beautiful white foul. It is an award-winning foul. You can just see. I've had this one for 7 years. She blooms beautifully. She is still in bark. Plan on keeping her in bark. She's happy that way. So if you're a beginner and you have a foul that is in bark and it is happy and it is doing well, I would suggest you leave it until you gain some knowledge about growing your orchids and until you thoroughly research the water culture method, because there are issues with water culture as well, and you need to learn how to care for the plants and take care of them before you start looking at the roots and trying to decide what to do with those roots. So I'm going to show you over here. I love this yellow foul. I bought this recently. It was just a few months ago. Loved the yellow blooms. Okay, I always take the outer ceramic pot away from the plant to see what the roots look like inside of the liner pot, the clear pot that it comes in. Well, I could not pry that outer pot away. So I looked at the plant. The leaves looked really, really good and healthy. And I thought, okay, I love this plant. I want a yellow foul. So I'm going to take my chances and I'm going to get it home and see what happens. Well, guess what happened? The roots were mostly rotted. That is just sometimes the price that you pay when you really, really want a specific color of an orchid. But just keep in mind, if you can't see the roots, then you don't know what you're getting. So I've been growing orchids now. I've been growing phals now, specifically, for 14 years. And so I feel like I kind of made a mistake on that one, but I do believe that this plant is a really, really healthy one, and I believe that the roots are going to rebound in the spring. Another note, if you're planning on doing water culture, I am not going to convert any of my orchids to water culture during the cold winter months. You don't repot orchids in the middle of the winter when you're going to repot them in bark or any other media. So I am not going to convert any of mine during the winter months. If you're a beginner and you really want a good starting point with your orchid knowledge, this is how I gained a lot. Let me get this. This is how I gained a lot of my knowledge. I went to the library, and this is by William Cullen, Understanding Orchids. I checked this out of my library, and I kept it off and on for about a year and a half. And finally, my husband found this on Amazon.com for me. So there is a lot of really good information in this book for beginners. Well, and I still refer to it. So I read this book so much that I can almost quote it to you verbatim. So William Cullen, thank you for writing such a wonderful book. You will see here I've got an orchid that looks splendid in watercolture. Okay, let me tell you the story about this one. This is an award-winning picotee, and the roots have been absolutely amazing. I bought this back in June, and as soon as it quit blooming, that's when I converted it to watercolture. And you can see it has just done very, very well. Now this one over here, as you see, it only has 3 leaves. I'll be honest with you, I normally don't keep them that only have 3 leaves unless those 3 leaves are smashingly wonderful. But these are not very large. As you see, this is a regular size Phalaenopsis. This is a miniature Phalaenopsis. Okay, now do you see how this has 3 leaves, but these 3 leaves are huge for a miniature. This is good growth for a miniature. This is not good growth for a Phalaenopsis. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to wait until this one blooms. Do you see how it's only got 3 buds on it? And the root system, it's not bad, but this one is not thriving. So what I'm going to do with this one is when it does bloom, I'm going to give it to somebody to just allow them to enjoy the blooms on this one. I'm going to pass this one along because I only have so much grow space. Now this one, yes, it does have just 3 leaves, but look at the root system. This is a miniature. This is good root growth. When you don't have more than 2 leaves, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. Those of you who have asked me if my orchid has absolutely no roots, is it going to survive in waterculture? You're going to have to spend a lot of time cleaning rot off of it. And to be honest with you, if you are a beginner, it is so very time consuming. I would pass it on to someone who has more knowledge than I do with orchids and with waterculture. I would keep the orchids in my collection like this, that thrive, that are just beautiful and that speak to you, because you're going to spend a lot of time with your orchids. Plus, you've got only a limited amount of grow space, and you want to give your thriving orchids the best grow space that they can possibly have with a lot of sunshine, a lot of, care. And that's what makes your collection thrive and grow. So I hope that helps you all, and be highly favored, deeply loved, and greatly blessed. And we'll see you next time.